Hey there, and welcome to the Off Shift Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Anthony Trucks, and today we have a genuine treat. It is rare that I get to find somebody who has such a kindred connection to my life. I love meeting people in the world. It's why I have my podcast in the first place, that we get to listen to great people talk about their lives or experiences. Today I met somebody named John Acuff, and John's a guy who is eight books published, New York Times best-selling author, and he is a phenomenal human. He has a lot of things that are kind of going on in his life that he shares openly and talks about, but I love that he has very clear ways to manage them. If you're a person that wants to accomplish some crazy cool goals, you've got to listen to this episode, especially as we come into this new year. A lot of individuals are going, man, I want to accomplish things, and have tried everything so many ways the same way, that they haven't really made breakthroughs, so it becomes a little bit now tiring. But this guy has a phenomenal way of looking through how you can perceive conversations in your head, ways you can look at goals, break things up, and gives you tactical approaches to them. So make sure you tune in and bring a notepad and take notes in this conversation. He's a great dude. Also, as we get to the new year, man, if you have not yet, you need to go to magicmind.co/shift. You need to get a little bit of this new stuff. They actually made a whole new kind of batch, and it's a new mixer of all the stuff. And so it allows you to have faster uptake, clearer mind. It's a little green juice I take every single day that allows me to have a clear mind, to focus like this, to speak like this, to have energy to go from this, to go hang out with my kids and to go train people. And without this, I honestly wouldn't be the man I am. To be quite honest, like I wouldn't have the same fluid brain and thinking process. It keeps me sharp, on my toes, happy and joyous. So make sure you go to magicmind.co and use the code AWSHIFT, or go to magicmind.co/shift and get yourself some of this Magic Mind stuff. It's beautiful. It's actually tastes a little bit better, a little more citrusy now. But I've been recommending it because I personally take it. I have taken it before I even got connected with them. I took this stuff because I believe in it. But that's it. Go to magicmind.co/shift. And let's get into the episode. Hey, so you already know who this person is. I gave the introduction. We're going to jump right into this conversation because this person is, man, we talked for a few minutes before we actually got on and got a cool little kind of insight to his humanity in the brief moments we get to talk. But without further ado, welcome to the show, John Acuff. How are you, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Anthony. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too, man. There's you know what it is? You have one of those like inviting smiles. I looked you up and I was like, let me see a picture, and you did a good job at that. Like you smile, you get this, hi, I'm John. I'm like, oh, John looks inviting, and then you were just as inviting when we hopped on the little conversation.
Yeah, but that's only because I can't pull off cool, dude. Like I'm looking at your photo where you're buttoning the coat, you got a red tie on. Like you can pull off cool. You can probably wear hats. I can't wear hats. I can't pull off cool, so I have to pull off friendly. That's the only thing I have in my arsenal. Yeah,
I dig it. I think I got cool. I don't know where I got cool from, because if you see some pictures of me as a kid, it wasn't that cool. And I do wear hats because I'm balding a little bit in the top. You can't really notice it too much, but I do, and it bothers me. It's from my football helmet. Is what I tell my wife. I'm hoping that's the case. Who knows? You look like a good-looking, happy guy, man. But I start this conversation with the same question, but the question opens the conversation to be whatever you want it to be. We'll kind of ebb and flow. But let's say I'm walking around Tennessee, Nashville to be specific. I've been there and spoke a couple times. And I sit down at a cool little, we'll call it outside coffee shop with live music. And you're sitting there next to me. Cool guy, cool hair, cool smile. I don't know you yet. For some reason, you feel compelled to turn and start talking to me. In your opinion, why should I listen to you?
I think you should listen to anybody that's brave enough to start talking to you, at least for a couple seconds. I think that people are interesting. And so I'd say, yeah, whether it's me or somebody else, let's go. The other thing is you never know where a conversation or an opportunity is going to go, but you know it doesn't go anywhere if you shut it down. So I would say, hey, reap and sow, let's go. Like, you don't know if it's going to turn into a forest or turn into nothing, but you know it'll turn into nothing if you don't at least sow a little bit. So I'd say let's sow a little conversation and see what happens.
I dig it, man. Plant the seeds, harvest those later on. In my head, as soon as you said it, I'm like, but if it's like 3 in the morning and there's like a dark alleyway, I'm not listening to you talk to me.
I
You say
won't
what you
be
think.
like I promise you I won't be in a dark alley at 3 a.m. If somebody's like, "Hey, let's go clubbing," I'm like, "I'm 46, dude. Like I'm happily married. That
Yeah.
club's got nothing for me. I'm good.
Dude.
Y'all enjoy 2 a.m. You enjoy 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be at home getting ready for my next day because I got too much fun things to do."
We are kindred in that aspect. I don't even like loud places. My wife and I went to a restaurant that someone gave us a gift card for $150 for.
Yeah.
We still have, I think, $50 because we went there and it was so loud. We're like, I don't want to go here again. Like old people.
Yeah,
It's
we're
weird.
out. We're out. We're out. Let's go. That's a wrap. That's
Which is
a
funny
wrap.
because you live in Nashville where it's always like noise and music and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be like, I get that. And there's something to it when you find that peace of like the home and you can just be calm and not. Now, did you always have that kind of calm desire or did you have the crazy moments in life where like you like
No,
the outside world?
I was a knucklehead in college. Like I was like
Really?
senior year of college, I got into raves. Like so
Mm,
no, like but I wouldn't
mm,
say that was a good decision. That was not
yeah.
a great period of my life. So no, I think it's the older I get and the more I go, I want to do a small degree of things I love, not a bunch of
Mhm,
things I kind of like. So as I,
mhm,
I talk about like people say they don't have enough time. Like you usually have enough time for the small degree of things you love. It's
yeah.
just that you're spending a lot of time on things you kind of sort of like. So
I
let's
dig it.
narrow that down a little bit so you can really focus.
Well, how do you find out what to narrow down from? Because you have to experience some things that are maybe likes to figure out what you love, right?
Well, a lot of it's self awareness. You can't achieve any sort of goal, any sort of accomplishment without a degree of self awareness. Because if you
Mm,
don't know how you operate, you just continue to make mistakes. So an easy example would be if you don't know you're a morning person, you'll schedule difficult tasks later in the afternoon and wonder why they're so hard versus
mm,
going, hey, let me have some self awareness. Where are my energy levels at the highest? Where am I at the best of my day? I need to schedule meetings later in the day. So, like for
mhm,
me, I don't do breakfast meetings. Breakfast is too expensive. 7 to
mm,
11, I need to be writing.
mm,
That's the fuel of my entire business. So I need
yeah.
to protect those hours. You want to go on a
Mhm,
walk with me at 4 p.m. on a Friday? Let's go. Like that's a
mhm,
perfect time for a conversation. So that's that self-awareness is paying
mhm,
attention to yourself and going, how do I work? If you take a Ferrari off-roading, you'd be like, Ferraris suck. No, no, no,
yeah.
no. They just suck at off-roading. You take a
True.
Jeep to a drag strip, it's going to suck. So a lot of it's going, where do I fit in? And that does take experience. It does take some years, but it's
Mhm.
worth it.
I dig it, man. I agree too. I think there's certain aspects. Like for me, I used to own a gym and I train and I work out and I realized everybody's like, oh, work out in the morning because your testosterone's higher. And so I did, and I would actually feel like, all right, in the morning I'm working out, but I feel like I should be doing something else. And when I would get done my workout, I wouldn't be as creative or film videos the same way. So I moved my workouts to the
Yeah.
evening. I was like, oh, work out at night. Then I go, man, I'm tired. I don't want to work out at night. Like I want to
Yeah.
sit in my house and chill. And I found like that 2 o'clock
Yeah.
window was like perfect for me. But it took trial and error to
Yeah.
find out what I actually love, and it fuels the rest of my day properly. So I get that. And I know one of the things for you is like you've done so much. You've written so many books, New York Times bestseller, like all these aspects. And I think one of them is about getting things done. How do you get to the point of knowing what to try? I think that's something when I listen to people talk like, I don't know what to do and I want to find my purpose. And it's like, yeah, well, my purpose I know is to do what I do and speak. Yours is to write. How do you get into the flow of even knowing what to test and try?
Well, I mean, I think you said the right word. It's test. You do experiments. You do small experiments. So this is if you're watching this on video, these are
Yeah.
my 10 pages of goals for 2023. So
Mm,
I'm very deliberately going, okay, they're not all going to make the party, but at the
yeah.
beginning, no bouncer. No bouncer at the door at the beginning. I'm going to brainstorm
Mm,
as many things as I want. But then
yeah.
as I get closer to actually doing the things, I'm going to start to eliminate. But I'm going to try experiments. I'm going to say,
Mm,
okay, I tried this for 30 days. What really happened? Was it worth it? Did it go the way I wanted to?
yeah.
If it was a business function, did I feel fulfilled? Did I serve real people? Did I help people? Did I see progress? If I didn't, I'm going to eliminate it. But part
Mhm,
of that, I mean, Anthony, it's so easy to crush it right now because the bar is so low. The average American watches the equivalent of 2 months of TV a year. Two
dang.
months, dude. If
Mm,
you only watch 1 month of TV a year, you're killing it. Like you
yeah.
still get to watch a whole month. So for me, it's like, okay, where's my time going? So if somebody said, hey, I want to, have more time to experiment, I go, well, let's look at screen time. Like, where's your time going? Because
Mhm,
there's a whole industry dedicated to you not doing the things. Like Netflix doesn't want you to write a book, dude. Like
They do not.
Hulu doesn't want you to write a book. Like
Yeah.
Hulu doesn't care if you get in shape. They care about your time. And their
Yeah.
whole business is designed around more of your time. So you get delivered and go, okay, there's a couple things I want to try. This thing feels like I got some passion stirring to this. Anthony tried this thing. I'm curious, could I do that thing Anthony did? You get around other people that are inspiring you. There's a million ways to kind of stoke that fire and turn it into something you actually want to do.
I like that, man. You're talking to something that I talk about all the time. Actually, I just did a video earlier today talking about being ruthless with time, like to the point where
Oh,
it's
yeah.
cutthroat. Like it, and it
Yeah.
sounds, you say that, but is there something to even like the way that the word sounds? And that's how I am, man. Like I'm in season of dad. I operate as a father first. I don't want to travel too much. I want to be present for
Yeah.
picking the kids up from school, taking them, get them up in the morning. I want to be, I want to train them. I want to be present because when they're gone, like I can't do anything else, right?
You
And
got
so I
one
drop
shot,
people.
dude. One shot.
You got one shot with each, and so I'm ruthless with it. And it's funny you say that because I look at it and go, yeah, a lot of it, the time is where I focus on. It's not trying to create or do or get overwhelmed. It's like I just say no. I'm going to time. I set
Yeah.
solid boundaries. Did you ever have the opposite? Did you have to go through some kind of crazy to find this nuance out?
No, I think it was over time I started to go, wow, this is valuable. So for me, the big shift was in my early 30s. I started a blog, and the blog started to gain a little traction, and I realized, oh, wait a second. I really enjoy this. This is important to me. I think if I throw gas or time on this, it's going to get bigger. But I
Yeah.
had a full-time job. I had 2 kids under the age of 4, beautiful wife, Atlanta commute. So I had to start stealing time back. Your word is ruthless. I'd say steal. Like I had to steal it back from other things. I had to get up at 5 a.m. I would practice speeches because I do probably 50 or 60 gigs a year. I would practice speeches on the drive to work. I'd give the steering wheel my keynote because in Atlanta, you got 50 minutes each way. So I started to go, it wasn't that I just decided I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to have grit. I'm going to have willpower. No, 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 no. I found something I wanted more than what I currently had. And that desire for that snowplowed my schedule. Nobody changes just because. They change for 2 reasons, like a lot of pain or a lot of desire. And I'd rather it be a lot of desire. I don't want to have to hit rock bottom to change my life. I'd much rather go, oh, I think I can be more than I am right now. And maybe I need somebody to show me that sometimes. We all do.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I think I see a way out of this day job I had. And then like, okay, I don't want to I'm going to stop watching TV as much because it's too valuable when I could be writing my blog. It's too valuable
Yeah.
when I could be practicing my speeches. So once I had like a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, I started sprinting toward that tunnel. That's what changed it for me.
I dig it. I think it changes everybody. That's what you have to do. I tell people your excuses cannot get bigger than the dream, or the dream dies, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the excuse could be,
100%.
I'm in a car all day. I can't practice the keynote, or like, I got the,
Yeah.
so like we can have these things that what people would buy. They would actually buy the excuse. Oh yeah, you're right, John. You're in a car all day, so you can't give a keynote. But I like the mentality because everyone I know that's successful at a higher level, they type stories like that. There's like a weird story like you used to sit in your car and talk. What if somebody watching was like, "What's this dude doing in the car?" Like that'd just be a
Yeah.
weird moment. But it creates this separation from the regular humanity.
Dude, and you know how it is. Once you get a taste of that, you want more of that. Like that's momentum. Like you get a little. So like I'll give you another example that this happened to me in the last year. I was like, I feel like there's a lot of time I'm missing when I sit down on a plane to take off for a flight. Like I'm like you, I fly a bunch, and I was like, I'm going to time it. I timed it 16 times. I'd sit down in my seat, I'd start my timer on my phone, and I timed it. Average time was 32 minutes. From me sitting down to actually taking off. Dude, if I take 100 flights a year, I just found 50 hours. If I know it takes me 500 hours to write a book, I just found a tenth of a book, or I found time to read. So like, that's the thing. Time won't find you. You have to find it. Now it's be easy to go, what a dorky, nerdy thing to do. Agreed. That's super weird. That's like, who's timing their time? Like what, but again, I can't say I'm too busy while time just floats away on its own.
True.
And so like the more I got into it, the more I was like, I'm going to have to nerd this thing out and find another half an hour. And then when I did, it was like, what? Look what I could do with this 30 minutes. Like if somebody came up to you today and said, hey, you get 30 minutes back in your day. What do you want to do? That would be exciting. So I just did that for myself. And that's what I find people tend to go, oh yeah, I need to find time. I need to be ruthless.
It's always there. It's always floating around. It's dude, your brain. I like the way your brain works. Your brain works a lot like mine. because I do the same thing. I find pockets, and like when I schedule my stuff and I'm traveling, I do the same thing. From if I'm gonna take the BART train to the airport, what can I do in the BART train? Can I read? Can I listen?
Yeah.
Can I write? If I'm in an Uber, what
Yeah.
can I do? When I'm in the
Yeah.
terminal, how soon can I get to the terminal? I got TSA pre-check. It usually takes me. Dude, it's creepy how you're talking to the way my brain works. But here's one
Dude,
thing.
totally. But that's how you do the thing. But go on, go on.
Yeah, no, it is. It's how you do the thing. Because I think that leads to my next question is, I have found that I'll lean this out for people. I'll say, here's what I do, and I'll help them structure their day the way mine is. And they go, I can't even pay attention to half the stuff you're talking about. How do you go? What I do is switch between different things mentally. Because when I do that, I may have to go from I'm in like today, I film videos, went from filming videos to doing a live presentation, 45 minutes, from that to filming videos, right to 7 minutes before me and you got on, I was finishing the videos. I can bang, 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 switch. Whereas most people go, do I need like an hour between those things? I don't have anything. Have you had to train yourself that way too?
100%. I call those ginger moments. So the reason they serve ginger at sushi restaurants is to cleanse your palate between bites. So you had octopus, you're about to eat, yellowfin tuna. You need the ginger to cleanse your palate, to change, to get you back to neutral. So what I do is I go, okay, I need a ginger moment between these two activities because there's such a big switch. So I do a quick 3-minute walk around the neighborhood, or I listen to a song, or whatever the moment requires. So that gives me the time between. I like to think about adults like little kids. Like anybody who's been a parent knows the best move you can give to a kid on a playground is a 2-minute warning. Hey buddy, we're leaving in 2 minutes. Go ahead and wrap your mind around it. 2-minute warning. Like if you grab the kid off the playground with no warning, they lose it. I think adults are the same way. So I'll go, hey, 2-minute warning. We're about to transition into this podcast. We're going to need to write. We're going to need to whatever. 2-minute warning. But I think about it like that. So I'm not naturally great at switching, but I'm getting better using tools that I've developed over time that help me switch.
I dig it, man. If you looked at I'm color coded like crazy, but I do this. When I look at something, I think through my schedule based on how my brain will be experiencing itself in that moment a week from now, 2 weeks from now. Because if I don't, like I will actually overload myself. And so I've learned that process, and I think it's how you get so much more done. Now you're a person with 7 books, I want to say. Is that correct?
8 books.
8 books. My apologies. Yeah. So you've written a bunch of books, and you speak and you travel, and you're a dad. And so when you look at all these things, I'm going to kind of pull this conversation in a direction because I think it's going to tie to the end of going over goals and stuff. But I have found in my life that one of the things I love that's the most beautiful piece is I have good harmony. The work-life balance thing throws me. It's I just don't think that balance truly exists in a sense of like, if I gave 8 hours to work, my wife should get balanced 8 hours. My health should get balanced 8 hours. But I find that I may have a good harmony. You are a person that's got this, smoothly to put together. Does that, first, as a language of hustle harmony, what I call it, make sense? And if so, and if it doesn't, how do you look at your life in a harmony to have everything move together smooth?
Well, I love that word. That makes a ton of sense. Again, I think we agree on so many different things in such a fun way. It's why it's fun to have this conversation. I love harmony. You're right about balance. It's a myth. It doesn't exist. And so for me, the way I look at it is I kind of look at it in seasons. You just said you're in dad season. You're in dad mode. So there's seasons for me. So I know one of my goals every year, we did it last year, we're going to do it this year, is I want to spend July in the mountains with my family. So I know that when I'm there, I'm going to work a day, day and a half each week. I've got meetings. I've got some things. I'm going to cram it all in. I'm going to have kind of sprint days, if you will. But the rest of the time, I'm going to be hiking with my family. I'm going to be doing things. I won't be doing that in October. October is a busy speaking month. You played football. Let's use a football story. Imagine if an NFL player came to his coach and was like, man, we really play way too many games in the fall. If we could do one game a month the whole year, that would fit my schedule better. The coach would be like, you're out. So life is like that. I have speaking season in the spring, speaking season in the fall. Those are my intents. That's when conferences are. December's pretty chill. Not a ton of events in December. So I'm really looking at it as seasons and going, how do I stay in that harmony and respect the seasons, where I would never say I'm going to spend October in the fall in the mountains with my family, because 1, they're in school. That doesn't work. 2, that's my most expensive month. So that doesn't make any sense. So I think that's how I look at harmony, is like, okay, what season am I in? Is it a book writing season? Is it a speaking season? And how do I ebb and flow within that?
Beautiful, dude. You stated it perfectly, because I actually use it as like instruments. And if it's, say, the drums, the instrument of my heartbeat of my family, and maybe the violin is my marriage, and the guitar is my career, right? there's different, all songs are not all at the same exact time. You may have a heavy drum, might have some heavier guitar and the less, and so I look at it as like it's the tempo and the sound of the song of my life is a different harmony, different times. So you're definitely alluding to it. You're a Nashville guy. Hopefully that makes sense with the music.
Oh, 100%, dude. 100%. And here's the thing is that you and I are similar in the sense of we want a full life, not just a great business. We want like I haven't done if I blow up my business and I make 10 times what I'm making, but I lose my family, that's a failed business.
I
Like
agree.
for me, that's a failed business. So I'm going, okay, hey, where does this issue need more attention? Where do like I want to be home Friday nights in the fall because my daughter played in the marching band, and so like that's something I go, okay, what do I say no to in order to do that? Or I want to move this around. So I think that's the key is that you as an individual have to define what success or harmony looks like for you, and then you have to fight for it and protect it. You can't ask the world to define it or change it because you're not, again, you're going to end up in a place that you really don't want with maybe one part of it's going really well, but the rest is a train wreck.
Dude, we are like the same brain. This is kind of creepy, but in a good way. I tell people you have to set your own scale. I just did on my live training I was doing for a buddy. I did this. I talked about the same thing. It's like today's topic, was how to live a life that matters. And I'm like, well, first has to matter to you. Set your own scale. Don't borrow the world's scale because what'll happen is you'll accomplish something and you'll feel great about it. You'll present it to the world and the world will go, oh, but you could have done this. And all of a sudden it's demeaning to you. So I'm like, set your own scale, live into your own thing, and then you're golden. And I think that leads us to the discussion I really want to have with you. You said you have a 10-page sheet of goals, and I think this episode is going to come out around the window of time when people are heavy into goal setting. I want to lean in, like when you talk about this, it's like you said, family's a big focus and doing what you do to make you have a fulfilled life. What do you set as goals?
Yeah, so you mentioned music, like different parts of your life are musical. So let's jump on that metaphor for a second. I think about it like most people are really good at goals in certain segments of their life. So career, like they have KPIs and their manager and sales goals and quarterly meetings and, they have a schedule. And then they just kind of hope their family organically happens like jazz. Like, just take care of itself. Where I go, okay, I need relational goals. So one of my relational goals would be I'm helping my youngest daughter train for a half marathon. So we get another time, one of my relational goals was I throw frisbee with my oldest daughter on Sundays. I learned over the years from a number of wise people that, quantity time leads to quality time. As a parent, you can't just go, hey, I got 15 minutes, time for a quality conversation, like heart to heart. Like I'll throw frisbee 100 times and time 87, a real deep conversation will spring because I put in the quantity time. With my wife, it'd be something as simple as, okay, we want to do 12 date nights. I mean, I've even gone to the point where I said, okay, I want to be a better dad, a better husband. I'm going to do 365 kind things for my kids. And so all I did was I bought a behavior chart that they sell on Amazon. That's like red light, green light, yellow light. I bought a pack of stickers. And if I did something small or something big, I'd put a green thing up there and go, okay, cool. I was deliberate about that because what you think about and what you plan turns into what you do. Like I wrote this book, Soundtracks, about mindset. And one of the ideas in there, which a lot of people have talked about, is your thoughts turn into your thoughts turn into your actions turn into your results. So often people go, here's the results I want, but they never change the thoughts. But if I have a relational goal, it changes how I treat my family. And a simple one, here's a simple one your listeners can do. 1 month, I said, I'm going to encourage one person every day for a month. And dude, all I did, I made a list of people, and then I would usually they're text messages. I would text them something. I'd go, hey, I was thinking about creativity. You always come to mind when I think about creative people. Hope you're doing well. I didn't have a single person respond, I wish you hadn't said that today. This is the worst day for you to tell me that. 90% of them said, you have no idea how much I needed that today. So I believe, like, my podcast is titled All It Takes Is a Goal, because I think that if you care about a portion of your life, it's a beautiful gift to give it, to make it a goal.
Beautiful. Seriously, you're talking the things I do. My son and I, my youngest son, I want to make sure I have a connected relationship with him. We do a morning routine every day, 6:30. We take a hike up the hill, do a little prayer and gratitude, cold plunge because it's hard, then meditation every morning. My daughter and I
love it, dude.
It's weird, but it works.
It.
Like it's time spent together. My daughter, we work out in the afternoons after school. Like I do these things the way you say it, and it's crazy because we all say I want to be close to the family. It's like we have to sometimes schedule it and create actions around what you want to be an amazing relationship. And I love if you've allocated even visual reminders to this kind of stuff. How do you go through thinking of a way to make these goals actions? Because I know that some people go, "This is my goal. I want to do this," but we'll call it the waning part is the actions or habits they choose to put in behind those.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine starting fuzzy. I'm fine with a fuzzy goal, like I want to be a
Yeah,
better dad. But
yeah,
eventually, as I work on that, I can't measure that. I can't track that. I can't at the end of the year review that. So then I'm going, okay, well, how will I make that an action? What does that look like on a Tuesday? What does that look like? And again, I'm not trying to do it all at once. Like my big thing, one of them is I don't believe in writer's block. I believe in idea bankruptcy. I believe
mm,
that if you can't write, it's just you don't have enough ideas in the bank. I never
I
sit
do.
down with a blank piece of paper. I always bring ideas with me. So I
Yeah,
collect ideas. So, like, here's a really practical example of that. If you want to be better at gift giving, because some husbands on listening to this will go, I need to get better at giving gifts at Christmas. Like,
yeah,
all you do is in September, you start listening to the things your family says and then you write them down. And then in
yeah,
December, you've given yourself a gift of the things they mentioned. So when
yeah.
my wife says, oh, I love this, and it's in September, I write it down. It took 14 seconds to put it in my
Mhm.
phone or put it in a
I do
notebook.
the same.
And then when I sit down to buy a gift, I go, oh my gosh, I had forgotten all about this thing she said, and she's going to be thrilled that I remembered. So it's little things like that. Again, I think when people say like, this fuzzy goal, they think it has to be complicated to execute it. It doesn't. And then you just give yourself lots of different ways to execute it, not just one. The
Yeah.
problem sometimes is we want one perfect thing. And I'd
Mhm.
much rather have 5 or 6 things that, oh, I'm on the road. This is kind. Like I have I have a whiteboard right now with all my goals. It's right. Or all the weekly goals. They're color coded. Blue is
I
family.
see that.
Yellow is work. And so like one of them is call Ellie, my oldest daughter. She's in college,
Yeah.
her first year of
Mhm.
college.
Yeah.
Somebody might go, you shouldn't need a reminder. Well, which is better, that I have a reminder and I call her, or I
Yeah.
don't have a reminder and the week gets busy and I don't? So like
Yeah.
that's one of my goals is now I call her and and I have her schedule on my calendar. Make it even
Mhm.
easier on yourself. I know when
Yeah.
she's in class. So I
Mhm.
also know when she's walking to class. Guess when I can get her? The 15 minutes before she has a seminar class. Boom,
True.
I call her. So that's the thing, like little things like that, I think is how you put actions around it. And I'm constantly
Mhm.
going, how do I track it? How do I see it? I want it in a list. How do I, and what's the best way for me to do it with my personality? That's the other thing, Anthony, is that
Mm.
I think you should modify advice. The problem is sometimes you hear people like me talk or people write books
Yeah.
and somebody will go, you got to get up at 2 a.m. every day and do 100 burpees.
Yeah.
And you go,
Yeah.
that sounds miserable.
Yeah.
Modify it. Modify it. Like you work out at 2. The average Instagram influencer, like motivational person, be like, no, you got to do it at 3 a.m. You got to no, for you, success is 2. Like
Yeah.
you're like, I'm a terrible Gary V. I suck at being Brene Brown. I suck at
Yeah.
being Jim Collins. I'm a
Yep.
pretty decent John Acuff when I'm
Mhm.
dialed in. So
Yeah.
like if I can modify other people's advice, so anything I say today, modify it to your life. Don't take it as a one-to-one because I don't know your strengths, your
Yeah.
skills, your weaknesses, your city. So I'm always like, okay, well, how could you modify that?
It's smart because then what happens is you start doing things that you start feeling more. I think is the feedback of positivity makes you want to do it more. If I want to get up at 4 in the morning and I don't do it, like the rock clock, he had this app that came out, the rock clock. Get up when
Yeah.
the rock gets up.
Yeah.
4 in the morning, like nah, dog, that's not for me. And and I'm aware of it though, but I don't feel bad because I didn't do it. But at the same time, I make modifications, so I do have success at the time 5:30 when I
Yeah.
get up and I go, hey, good job, man. Another sidebar, not much of a sidebar. My son, he's in freshman year of college too. And I found this thing you might want to grab called a love box. This is not a marketing. This is just a kind of a cool little thing. And what it is, attached to the Wi-Fi. I have an app on my phone, and I can send a message that will make a little heart spin on the box. He opens it up. You can see an image or text. Every Monday and Thursday at 7:15, I text my son like a heartfelt, thoughtful message that I put on. So
Dude,
when
I
you do
love
something
that. That's fantastic.
dude, it's
It's called
creepy how
Love
much.
Box.
It's called Love
I'm
Box. The
writing that
little
down.
wooden.
I'm writing
You get
that
like
down.
you
Let's
can
go.
change the color of the hearts. It's called a Love Box, man. They just got attached to the Wi-Fi, and you can actually share that with like your wife, or because they get the app and they can send message to the exact same box. So as opposed to a text
Dude.
message, it's a little bit separate, but it's more personal.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, see, I knew as soon as we were talking, we was like, oh, we could talk for like 12 hours.
Yeah, we could.
We're so dialed in on stuff, dude. It's so fun.
It is cool. It's probably the weirdest conversation I've had with someone. I feel like like it's my brother who we just sat and talked, and like it's almost like we've been sharing notes, but not even, knowing it's going out into the world. Dude, it's been a blast. We're not even close to done, which is fun for me. Well, we kind of are, but time flies. We're having fun. We had talked earlier about this idea of, because I know that the goals are ideal. We go into them, and I know that as we get into it, it gets difficult. Typically for a lot of people, it's hard. It's something where this new thing, I have this aspiration, I can connect to the outcome of it, but in the process, the efforts, they get harder and harder and harder. And we were alluding to, like, how do we get that killer instinct? How do you, in your own, like, I guess, perspective, think that we can get people to go, hey, all these things are in place. It all sounds good. There will still be a time when you wake up and go, I don't want to do this. This is hard. Should I stay on it? How do you think people can develop that mentality to create momentum ongoing?
Yeah, so one, it's going to happen. Don't feel like a failure when it happens. Every goal sucks in the middle. Like success is boring in the middle. It's you doing a million things nobody sees. There's nobody cheering. Like they see the 10-minute version. You did, hours and hours and hours and hours, often years and years and years. So it's going to happen. But what I like to do is create what I call a motivation portfolio. Part of the challenge is people think they're going to have one form of motivation that will carry them. But usually motivation is the first thing that leaves when the work shows up. Motivation is pretty flighty. Like we did a study where we studied 30-day goals with people, and the largest degree of dropout we saw happened not on day 15, not on day 16, on day 2. On day 2, because on day 1, it's just wish. It's fantasy. Day 2, when all the work showed up, motivation got real quiet, and people go, well, I don't feel a certain way, so it must be the wrong thing. I'm going to change. So what I like to do is walk people through an exercise called the motivation portfolio, where we come up with 20 things they're motivated by. Because, dude, on some days, the first 10 won't even touch you. Some days you'll be like, I don't care about this. I don't care about this. I want you to go all the way down to 17 and go, no, that one still gets me up. And you might go, having my friend. I don't love to work out most mornings, but I love to text my trainer that I did it. And so that motivates me. Some mornings I love the song. Some mornings I do feel like it, and the feeling motivates me. But more often than not, I need a lot of forms of motivation. I'm not a naturally positive person. I'm pretty negative, pessimistic. I grew up in Massachusetts. I'm pretty sarcastic, like Goodwill Hunting. But I've done both. I've done negative and I've done positive, and the ROI of positive is way better than negative. So I work really hard at that. So with somebody in the middle of a goal, I'd say, well, let's get you reconnected to your desire. Let's make sure, it might be so far away from where you started, you forgot about it. Let's look at your motivation portfolio. How many times have you touched your motivation today? What are the things? What's your community look like? So I try to help people make it through the middle. How do we stack the odds in your favor to make it through the middle and get to the finish? Because again, we as a culture, we say stupid things like, the hardest part of any journey is the first step, or well begun is half done. No, it's not. If a surgeon said to you, Anthony, as soon as I make the first incision, I'm half done with your surgery, you'd be like, where did you go to school? The hardest part of any journey is the first step. Dude, we have kickoff parties. We have launch parties. I've never been to a middle party. I worked at some great companies. I never had a manager say, we're at the middle of the project, time for middle cake. We celebrate the beginning as Americans, and we ignore the middle and the finish. So I try to shine a light on the middle and let us make it through the middle in some really practical ways.
I like it, dude. It reminds me of Robin Sharma has a statement. He says, change, which, it's kind of the same thing. We're talking about changing directions. He says, it's fun in the beginning. It's ugly in the middle, but beautiful in the end. And it's the same
that's great. Exactly.
Right? It's like a Spartan race. So you do any kind of race, let's go but halfway through the race, you're like, why did I do this? And then you cross the finish line, you're like, go get my beer. And it's a feeling, but I love the idea of this motivation portfolio. Because for me, I always kind of this is what I find. My brain, what I set it towards, it goes to find. If it wants to find something negative, it'll find it. If it wants to find something positive, I'll find it. And my wife has this uncanny ability to ask me to do things I don't want to do. And so I'll find ways purposely to enjoy it. And when you made that statement about someone the training thing, there's a one point in time my wife was like, hey, I want to do a half Ironman. I go, I'm glad you do. So you want to do it with me? All of my soul said absolutely not. And so, but because there's so much training, but I go, you know what? Yeah. I want to make sure I'm close to my wife. She's going to spend 3 to 4 hours a day with somebody, right? Her new friends, new people. Why not it be with me and we can get tight on something? So I was like, all right. So every day I got up. She goes, do you want to do it? I go, no, I don't want to do this, but I want to be close to you. I want to have a great marriage.
Yeah.
And so my
Yeah.
motivation was like, I want my wife to feel like she has her partner with her doing it. So I'd run those miles and swim those miles, and dude, it was crazy. But that was the thing. It was me going back to, why am I getting up and doing this? My back hurts, my
Yep.
knees hurt, and I got to run for 15 miles in a treadmill at this horrible gym. That was the motivation. Dude, I like it, man. I
Well,
mean, this,
dude, on that story,
yeah.
I saw a sign once at a Ironman, and somebody in the crowd had a sign that said, "If you didn't get divorced, you didn't train hard enough." And like you go, that's not a funny sign. But dude,
No.
divorces through like people that go real intense and stuff happen because on the other side, the spouse doesn't go, wait a second, you're going to spend 9 hours training on a Saturday? I would like to be with you those 9 hours. So that was actually a really smart, really healthy thing you did. I love that, dude.
Thank you, man. I mean, I did. And the thing is, it was like a little bit of a backdoor. We had got divorced and got remarried. And so it was like a window of
Yep.
about a year after the remarriage. And I just wanted to be close to her. And so it worked out.
Yeah.
And so even to this day,
And you're like, I want to
reconnected.
lean into this. I'm going to invest in this.
Yeah,
Like, dude, that's great. I love
100%,
that.
dude. It was
And
a lot.
I love that story. Like that you guys reconciled. Like, amen. That's fantastic, dude.
It was fun, man. I got a really cool marriage. I got a cool, weird life, but it's always fun because it's
Yeah.
always things I find out later that like I didn't know that people usually have problems. So it's like, oh, I'm glad I had that logic at like 30 something years old to figure
Yeah.
that out. 'Cause not everybody does, right? I do want to make sure we have a little bit of time to talk about your book, the most recent one I have, Soundtracks. And so I kind of you did a good job of alluding to like what this is without giving all of it away, so to speak, without driving into it. But the idea of overthinking, I think that it does have a place within this idea of goals and what we're conversationally going into as this year starts. There is so much people can do. And I think we do get spun up in the overwhelm sometimes of all these things going on, but you look at it as kind of a superpower. Do you mind unpacking that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. So the book, I look at three things when I work on an idea, a business, a speech. This is kind of my Venn diagram of a successful idea. One is there a personal connection? Am I personally connected to it? Like, and you're the same way. Like, you don't get on a stage and share something you're not personally connected to.
Not at
You
all.
like, it comes through that you're passionate. So I was an overthinker and I was like, I want to figure out, can I change that? Can I make it something different? Two, the PhD, this guy named Mike Peasley, who's a professor, we asked 10,000 people if they struggle with overthinking, and 99.5% of people said yes. So the second thing I look for is need. Do people need this? Culturally, do they need it? Am I hearing neighbors talk about it? At church, is somebody mentioned it? Third thing I look for is there a spot for me in the marketplace? So when I went to the marketplace, I realized most books and resources would say, stop it, stop thinking, turn off your brain. Number one, that's impossible. Like meditation, quiet time, whatever, that's 10 minutes of your day. That's 30 minutes of your day. What about the other 23 and a half hours? Two, you were designed to think. You're amazing at thinking. What if you could just figure out how to harness that for you, not against you? So that's what the book is about. And it teaches three things. One, how do you retire your broken soundtracks? Get rid of the ones that are in the way. Two, how do you replace them with new soundtracks? Your brain is waiting to be told what to think. You just said, like, if I look for the positive, I find it. If I look for the negative, I find it. You're telling your brain, hey, let's go on a positive hunt. Third thing is, how do you repeat the new ones so often they become as automatic as the old ones? So it's retire, replace, and repeat. And that's how you build a winning mindset. And it takes something complicated and fuzzy like mindset and goes, here's practical things you can do to change the way you think about yourself, about your world, about your wife, about your family, about your business. There's tactical things you can do. And it's been super fun to talk about.
It sounds interesting, man, because I think it's one of those things that you realize how important it is, and most people like they just kind of they kind of push it by, or they just keep fighting this uphill battle, not realizing if you just stopped and unpacked what's going on in your head a little bit more, you might give yourself a better air of directing energy to fix some things. Now, I love the idea of retiring the old soundtracks, because there's always windows of time when we all go, hey, you suck, man. You look in the mirror like, you suck, dude. What are you doing? I don't know. And then we distract ourselves. We go find ways to watch TV or scroll through the phone to not face the person inside because we don't like that person too much. How do you even notice, like, or stop to accept that you have to have soundtracks retired?
Yeah. So I'll give every listener a 30-second exercise they can use to determine if they have a broken soundtrack. It's actually really simple. All you do, and it ties back to goals, all you do is write down a goal. Write down a dream, a hope, a desire. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to move to San Francisco. I want to write a book. I want to start a podcast. I want to reconcile with a spouse. Write down a goal and then listen to your first thoughts. Listen to the thoughts that come next. Listen to your reaction, because every reaction is an education. Is your reaction, you should do that. There are people that would love to hear your podcast. You're equipped to do that. It's time for you to do that. Or is it the opposite? Who are you to think you can do that? You think you can do a podcast? You think you can lose weight? The last 10 times you tried didn't work. Why would this time work? You'll instantly be able to tell, okay, my thoughts right now are for me or against me. And if they're against you, that's the sign that that's a broken soundtrack you should retire. And then you ask the 3 simplest questions. Is it true? Is this thing I'm telling myself about myself true? One of the greatest mistakes you can make is assuming all your thoughts are true. And we do that because every thought you have is delivered in your own voice. And so you're familiar with it. So you tend to trust it, even though your thoughts lie to you all the time. Second question, is it helpful? When I say this to myself again and again, does it move me forward or pull me back? And you ask more than one question, because some things in life are true, but they're not helpful. I talked to a manager who got fired 12 years ago, and he said, John, I realized 12 years later, every time a door shut at work, I started to think, should I be in that meeting? Why am I not in that meeting? Who's in that meeting? Are important people in that meeting? Am I going to get fired again? Is it true he could be fired? It is. Is it helpful for him to overthink that every time he's not invited to a meeting? Of course not. Third question, is it kind? When I tell myself this, am I being kind to myself? Would I tell a friend this and they'd still want to be my friend? If you can't answer yes to, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it kind? It's probably a broken soundtrack that you should retire.
That's a big way to look at it. I like it, man. I just haven't said they call it voice of judgment, voice of wisdom. Somewhere I heard that recently, that discussion. It's true. And if you notice the thoughts, you can actually pay attention to them differently and adjust them. I think there's a part of this we haven't even talked to, and I kind of was playing with the idea of talking to it, but I think you have a good perspective on it. All these things sound great, but then all times, we have other people involved in our lives, spouses, friends, colleagues, right? How do you navigate these areas when you have goals, you have these conversations that either the conversations are anchored by other people stating them and repeating them, and or you have a space you want to create something, and in doing so, you might be cast out from your tribe?
Yeah, I mean, that can be scary. And it depends on the relationship we're talking about. If it's a spousal relationship versus a friend. If we're talking about a grumpy coworker that's not a safe person and they've told you that 100 different ways, that person no longer gets access to the things you're really caring about. It's different when it's a spouse, because when it's a spouse, you can get to a place where if you're not sharing those things, you don't stop sharing them. You just start sharing them with other people who aren't your spouse. And that's a dangerous road to go down. So it really depends on the relationship. But for me, part of it, let's take the marriage example. I learned a great lesson from a guy named John Woodall once. He said, in every marriage, there's a how person and a wow person. And the wow person goes, I'm going to change this thing. It's amazing. We're going to do it. And the how person, out of their strength, goes, well, how will that make money? How are you going to do it? How are you going to? And the wow person feels attacked. And they pull back and go, why are you, shooting down my dream? So in my own marriage, what we've had to do is learn, okay, when I come down and say to my wife, I've got a wow idea, I say, I'm not about to mortgage the house. I'm not about to start another business. You're a really smart person. I want to brainstorm right now. And we brainstorm. And she doesn't ask me really hard how questions initially. She gives me a couple days because she knows as a wow person, by the 4 days from now, I might not even remember I said that. I might be onto something else. And so you learn how to communicate inside a marriage that way. One of her questions she asks me when she reads my books is, before they, go to the publisher, she'll say, hey, do you want feedback or compliments right now? And that's a brilliant question, because sometimes when it's early in the process, I need her to be like, you can do it. You can push through. Like, I believe in you. Let's go. But as we get close further down the road, I need her to say, this story isn't good. This part isn't true. This is you pretending to be another author because you feel insecure, and it comes across in the writing. So part of it is just learning how to do that. And then if it's a spouse relationship, counseling is amazing. Like, go get a third party to help you with that. If we are talking about cutting negative people out of your life, part of that is making sure you have positive people too. Like, you don't want to get isolated, but you can start, like, when you start changing your life, you'll often start changing the people you hang out with, because you start to go, wow, this person really encourages me to level up. Like, this person is really like, this person, like you and I, if we lived near each other, we would go get coffee and amp each other up, because the stuff we talked about today, we're speaking the same language. Now, if I say to somebody, hey, I time how long it takes me to leave when I sit down at an airport seat or an airplane seat, and they go, "That's so weird. Why would you do that? You should just," like, I would know, oh, okay. Like, they speak a different language, and it might be a great language. That's just not my language, not my people. I'm not mad about that, but I'm just not going to go, like, I don't show everybody my 10 pages of goals, but next Thursday, I'm sitting down with 3 other dudes who are like me, and we're going to work on these, and then we're going to have a follow-up meeting where we hold each other accountable. Because, like, my big thing, dude, relation-wise, and then I'll stop because this got me too excited.
This is beautiful, man. I love it. Go ahead.
I was driving down the highway in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I realized that it only takes one person to pilot a Honda Civic. Like, one dude can drive a Honda Civic by himself. It takes up to 1,200 people to pilot a Formula One car. The teams are made of 1,200 people, because if you want to go 221 miles an hour around a corner in Monaco in a $12.1 million vehicle, you better have support. So I realized I want to be Formula One. Like, I don't want to be Honda Civic. I'm going to need a lot of community. I had a guy last night call me and say, "Hey, here's this thing you did. I don't think it was the right thing to do. You asked me to hold you accountable." Like, it wasn't a fun phone call to get. Like, but man, I was grateful by the end of it. Man, I was able to go, "Hey, dude, you're right, man. You're right." And I didn't see that. Thank you for saying that. So that's how I think about community, is that if you want to be a Formula One, you better be exposed to other people. Like, one thing I say is leaders who can't be questioned end up doing questionable things. Leaders who can't be questioned end up doing questionable things. You show me a company that fell, you show me a church that falls, I'll show you a leader who is isolated and could only be told the things they wanted to hear. So I take very seriously who I surround myself with, and I try to be careful with that, and I try to like, have mentors above me, mentors that people that I'm mentoring, but like, community matters a lot.
I dig it, man. You're literally talking the same language. I have a guy that I work with every Thursday. Tomorrow's actually our meetup day. And our whole thing is, it's like, here's what I'm going to do. And then I don't want to be the first one to show up and not have it done. That's our accountability. I think it's where we battled to make sure that when we set something out, it's a challenge, but I don't show up and I'm not going to be the first one that misses it and drops the ball. Right. But there's something to that. Like, I have also my best friend in the world. He's not a negative guy, but he has no problem telling me what he noticed and goes, "That sucks." We've been friends since we were in 3rd grade, like 30 plus years. But I'm the same way. I think it's interesting because as much as I need that community, I'm also siloed to protect what I've built. I have to have the right people that come in the right space, because I can't bring a cancer in unknowingly and then try to find a way to justify it being there. And so, yeah, I agree. And I think football taught me big time, like, hey, you're not great at everything. You could be great in the field, but we're going to watch film. And when we watch the film, you're going to suck at a few plays. And someone better be able to get you on track, and you listen to it and go, "All right, you're right," and then go back in the game.
Yeah, and that's hard, dude. That's hard. My favorite question from a mentor relationship is something that Andy Stanley talked about, where his mentor says, "What don't you want me to ask you about today?" And I think that's a brilliant question. Like, that when you sit down, your mentor goes, "Hey, what don't you want me to bring up today?" And you go, "Oh," because you walk into those situations, you're like, "I hope they don't ask about this part of my business." And so, like, to just come out and say, like, hey, up front, "What don't you want me to ask you about today?" And you're like, "Oh, that's dude, like, that's a healthy question."
Dude, this is awesome. I've really thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, man. Like you said, I'd definitely come have a coffee with you out in Nashville at some point in time. Dude, 2 questions. First one's a simple one. Where do I send people to get a hold of you, the book? Where's the best place to engage in your world?
Well, I mean, I nerded out on goals today. So there's 2 places. One is acuff.me/goals, acuff.me/goals. And then I have a podcast called All It Takes is a Goal. And I think you would be a blast to have on. So we'll definitely get you scheduled for that at some point when you've got some time in your schedule and want to do it. I'd love to interview you. It's called All It Takes is a Goal. So I think we'd have an equally fun conversation on my podcast too.
Count me in, man. I have some definite thoughts about goals. By all means, I do. I even have a conversation I had with a guy previously on the podcast. It's like, goals are stupid. And in my head, I'm like, no, I don't think
I know who it was too. And I disagree. Dude, like, whenever somebody goes, "I don't like goals," and I go, "What do you like to go?" "I like commitments." That's the same thing. You're just using it like, when somebody goes, I like resolutions. "I don't like habits. I like this other word." I don't care what word it is, as long as you're getting it done. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have a fun conversation. I would love to join you on that. Second question is one I ask everybody, and you can take wherever you want. Here's a question. What promise did God or the Creator make to the world when they created you?
I think the promise I think about a lot is grab a shovel. So in the parable where talents are given out, somebody gets 5, somebody gets 2, somebody gets 1. The 5 and the 2 double it, and then there's a party after. Amazing. They immediately put it to work, which means they already had a system, they already had a plan, they already in motion. The one person buried it and they missed out on it. So I like to tell people, no, let's grab a shovel. Like maybe you buried some part of yourself that the world needs, that you need, that your family needs. Let's go grab a shovel. Like there's more to you than you think right now. Let's grab a shovel. So I think he said, okay, I'm gonna help you teach other people how to grab a shovel.
I like that. I have a statement I say don't rob the world of the gift of you. And I think it's kind of in the same vein. That's good.
Oh, 100%, 100%, dude. Yeah. So again, of course, we're aligned with that. I love that.
Dude, that's awesome. I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you, man, for spending time. I know you're a busy guy, and so I'm glad you're able to find a way to fit this in the schedule. Those of you guys who are tuned in with us, thank you so much for hanging out with us. If something that was shared today benefited you, apply it to your life. If you could think it benefits somebody else, share it with them so they can apply it to their life. Make sure you go and visit acuff.me/goals to go check out all the cool stuff he has going on, especially if you're kind of wanting to get some cool things done this year. Outside of that, as always, make the most of your off shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and John Acuff signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.